Konnichiwa, Jess des. Now, I've decided to come on today to talk about the fact that we're coming up for our 6 years of running our community. So, if you've been following us for a while, or if you've only just started following Nihongo Connection, we actually started as a study club in Edinburgh back in 2014. Now, it all began because I had come back from Japan in 2005 and I had been attending Japanese classes to try and manage my Japanese language skills, to try to retain the Japanese that I had picked up whilst living in Japan. Now, I had lived in Japan from 2002 until 2005, and during that time, I was teaching English for most of those years, and I also spent a portion of time as a taiko drumming apprentice for Drum Tao, who you may or may not have heard of, but it involved me living with the taiko group for an extended period of time, training, cleaning, running the resort all together. So during that time, I had a real immersive experience as I was the only non-Japanese there. And I noticed a significant increase in my language skills after that time. Before that point, I had done a lot of language lessons. I had attended a lot of courses, but I had also been very active in my community. So I was able to communicate on a basic level. Once I did my time in the taiko drumming retreat group, I had spent all day, every day, living in the Japanese language, being spoken to in the Japanese language, having to reply in the Japanese language, all because the people that were there weren't able to communicate with me in English to the level that I could communicate in Japanese. So Japanese was our default language for communication. Now, when I left the taiko drumming group and then I went back to teaching in English, I was still spending my days after work teaching English, going to another taiko team, communicating with them in Japanese, spending a lot of time with Japanese friends that I'd made in the area, and I was basically living my life surrounded by the Japanese language because I was in Japan, right? So when I came back to the UK, I again joined a Japanese taiko drumming group based near Glasgow. And I was surprised to find that a lot of the people in that group, one, maybe hadn't been to Japan at all, but two, definitely didn't speak Japanese. So although I was able to continue with my Japanese taiko drumming, I wasn't able to continue with my language abilities, my language skills. So from 2005, when I arrived back in the UK, until 2014, I was attending class after class after class, trying to maintain my Japanese. Because the classes, of course, were aimed at different levels, but none of them were really aimed at conversation. So I had conversational level Japanese, but the classes were all teaching from textbooks, or they became culture classes, which is great, but the teachers would use English. Now, I didn't notice at the time, but I started to turn up to the lessons early, and I would hang around after the lessons as well. Always the first student there, the last student to leave. And this was because I was actually craving the conversational element. So I would go to the class, I would converse with the teacher in Japanese before the class would then start, and I'm talking group classes here. I don't think I had any one-to-one lessons at that time. So I had these group classes, and the classes would be predominantly in English. The classes were all run by native Japanese speakers. But when they were explaining things, they would default to English to explain. They would teach the grammar to us, and then we would have written exercises. And this was just not what I was looking for at all. But I didn't realize what I was looking for. I just turned up early to converse with the teacher, and I would leave late to converse with the teacher. So it was after a couple of years that I decided to just try and find the class I was looking for. And I ended up going to 4 different Japanese language classes every week. I would go to places like private language schools. I would go to the university classes that they were doing. I would go to the student union university classes that were being organized. I would contact Japanese native speakers that I knew and organize classes for myself and other people so that we could perhaps create this situation that I was looking for. And it wasn't until a class in 2014 that I was a part of that I noticed every time I went to the class, I took my homework to the class, but it was incomplete. So I had actually been given the homework the week before. I'd not touched it for an entire week, and then I turned up at the class with this empty piece of paper with some Japanese questions on it, just I hadn't completed it. And I'd hurriedly complete it at the start of the class before the other students arrived, and perhaps while the teacher was making me a cup of tea, that sort of thing. And I thought, why aren't I doing the homework? What I want to learn, I want to speak Japanese, I want to learn more Japanese. Why aren't I doing the homework? And that's when I realized that I didn't have the motivation. And motivation is such a huge thing. Yes, I was paying for the lessons, I was turning up to the lessons, but I wasn't doing anything in between. And that was pretty much worthless to me because I wasn't using any of the language in between the lessons. So what was the point in paying for these lessons? So during one of the lessons, I spoke to the other people in the class and asked them, when do you do your homework for this class? And they said to me, actually this afternoon, or while I was on the bus on the way here. So they were doing the same thing as me. A whole week was going with no Japanese, and they were turning up to the class again. And they were saying they couldn't find the motivation either. So I went with my gut and I just said, hey, look, let's meet halfway through the week and let's do our homework together. At least we'll have some Japanese halfway through in between these classes. And then we'll get some continuity happening in our brains. So they said, yes, we'll do that. So it was myself and Charlene and Lockie, and we met up. First of all, we started to meet up in a big coffee shop, a big name brand coffee shop. And they brought their textbooks and we sat down, and they would sit down, open the textbooks and start writing their homework. And I resisted this again. I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do this homework. So I would say to them, hey, can we chat in Japanese whilst we do our homework? Because they wanted to do it. And so we would chat together in Japanese, just the 3 of us, 3 learners chatting together and trying to use the vocabulary from our homework within our conversation. Now, that gave me the motivation. The fact that I was beginning to speak again really drove me to keep these meetings going. So I would say, please, let's meet next week, let's meet. And it became a weekly thing. I also had a Japanese friend who I told about this, and she decided to come along and help us as well. So then we had a Japanese native speaker there to chat to in Japanese to help us with our homework. And we built this study club. We then decided to move location, and we moved to a smaller, we moved to a pub first but it was too noisy. Then we moved to a smaller coffee shop to meet up. And then we had a Japanese native speaker come along who had heard about the group through somebody else. So it was becoming word of mouth now that people were finding out about our conversation club. Now, this particular Japanese individual, Kayo-san, she created a Facebook group for us. So she created the Facebook group. And at this point, we decided we needed a name. So we called ourselves Nihongo Scotland because we were in Scotland. And this group met every week. We decided on Fridays, 6 till 8 p.m. And we met weekly at this time, at this place. When we got to the winter, however, it wasn't so good because then our place that we were meeting closed an hour earlier in the winter because historically they had done less business. So they were then finishing at 7 o'clock. And so we needed somewhere else to go because for me, 1 hour wasn't enough. So we then looked for a new location and we found one which was closer to the city centre. And the group kept growing. Now, don't get me wrong, there were times when I turned up. So I was there every week on week. I took games, I took textbooks for those people that wanted to read textbooks that didn't have textbooks. I created activities. Now, I have a background in teaching English as a foreign language, and I've done that for children and adults for many years. So I used the same ideas, the same games, and I changed them into Japanese language activities instead. So we would gather every Friday from 6 till 8 p.m. at this location, which we found the perfect place. It was a burger place, which you could sit down and have drinks. They served alcohol, which helps people speak a foreign language, by the way, if you didn't know that. People become more relaxed when they have a little bit of a drink in them. And the group started to grow. There were weeks when I was there where nobody came for the first half an hour, so I was sitting there on my own, but I used that opportunity to speak to myself in the language and sometimes open a textbook, but you've probably gathered by now I'm not a big fan of textbooks. And suddenly we had 20, 30 people coming to this group every week. At that point, something strange started to happen. I started to get messages on Facebook from people wanting to join the Facebook group who were not in Edinburgh, who were in places all over the world. And they would send a message to the group. Oh, I think at this point I decided to put questions on the group because I'd had so many people from so many places ask how to join the Conversation Club. And I said, but we're in Edinburgh. So I put a question on the Facebook group. Are you based in Scotland? Are you able to join our group? We meet in Edinburgh. Therefore, sort of saying, hey, we don't do anything for people around the world. It's just for people in Edinburgh. I said, but there are a lot of people from around the world asking that question. You know, how do we get involved? How do we join your conversation club? And I said, but this is in Edinburgh. It was around that time that I started to look at ways to work online. I'd always wanted to travel more, and I wanted to have an online business that I could do. I ended up getting a free session with a business coach, and she asked me why I wasn't running an online version of my conversation club. And then from then, the online decision grew. The online group grew. At that point, I realized that calling the group Nihongo Scotland wasn't going to appeal to people around the world. So I changed it to Nihongo Connection. The reason being, it's a group for connection. We are connecting with each other around the world using the medium of the Japanese language. The idea also is that no English is used at all. So our conversation club every Friday, from the minute you arrive, it's Japanese only until the minute you leave. The reason we do this is because my experience of exchange situations where you have a language exchange situation always defaults to English. That may not be your experience, but that was my experience. Now, that is often because the native English speaker says, oh, well, you know, English is used more readily. Let's help them out with their English. But it's an excuse. You're just afraid to speak Japanese. You're just afraid to make those mistakes in Japanese. So you're like, oh, well, I'll help them with their English. So I was like, right, we're going to knock that on the head. Hey, I'm saying this because I'm guilty of this, okay? This was my way out. When I lived in Japan, when I first got there, anytime it was looking like I was needing to speak Japanese, I was like, oh no, this person, they want to speak English, so I'll just speak English with them. Yeah, no, that was a cop-out on my side. So when I started this group, I was like, I am not going to let myself get away with this. It's going to be Japanese only. And that was the rule. That was the only rule. You walk in here, it's Japanese only. Now, the funny thing that's happened about that is that now our conversation group, some of those people have never spoken to me in English. And so that's really weird, especially when you walk around. If you walk in the street before lockdown, walk in the street, you bump into somebody from the conversation club, we would automatically speak to each other in Japanese. That's pretty cool. You're standing in the middle of Edinburgh and you're chatting in Japanese because that is the default language that you have had with that person. You haven't had a conversation with that person in English or another language. It's only ever been Japanese. And for me, it's like my brain just automatically sees that person. That's somebody from Conversation Club. Konnichiwa, konbanwa, whatever time of day it is. So it's habit. That's a habit that's formed right there. So the Conversation Club then became a conversation community. And we had a lot of requests for online opportunities. So I started to think, okay, how could this work? I started to research different platforms. This is in 2014, okay, so 6 years ago now. What could we use? How could we use it? At the time, Skype was only one person to one person. So I was like, well, we can't use Skype. And then I found out about Zoom. So I was like, great, okay. I'm going to set up an event in the Facebook group. I think I then made a Facebook page and I put the event on there and I said, if you want to join this conversation club online, it's going to be at this time. And I'm pretty sure I did it. The first one was an 8 p.m. UK time. So we had a few people come to that. We had people from the States and people from the UK. And then I got messages from people on the Facebook group saying, hey, wait, I'm in Australia, I'm in New Zealand, I can't make that time. Can you do one that's earlier in the day? So I was working full-time, by the way, at this point. So I was working full-time for the Japanese consulate in Edinburgh. And I thought, okay, how can I do this? The consulate's 5 minutes walk from where I live in Edinburgh. So I was like, I could get up earlier and run a conversation club before work. It'll just be half an hour, so I can quickly do a half an hour conversation club before I start my day at the office. So I made the event in the Facebook page. I put it at 8 in the morning, I think it was, because I started work at 9:30. So I had time to, was it 8? I can't remember. I think it was 8 o'clock. I had time to shower afterwards and get myself ready for work. So I would quickly get up, brush my hair, get online and chat to people in Japanese at 8 a.m. my time, UK. And this allowed people in Japan to join us. So I had Japanese friends joining us. So then we had a Japanese speaker in the group to make sure that we were speaking proper Japanese. And then I had people from Indonesia, I think, and places like that joining as well. So it was really international. Cool. we'd had this 8 o'clock in the evening, and then the next week I did an 8 o'clock in the morning. But the messages still kept coming. I can't make 8 o'clock because I'm at work, or I can't make that time because I'm at work. Bearing in mind, these people were in different parts of the planet, and their time fell at times that just weren't convenient. So then I said, okay, well, how about a lunchtime UK meeting for, people in the States could come if it's before work, and then people in Japan could come along before they go to bed, sort of thing. So then I had this lunchtime, and that meant that I was at work at the consulate, and we had a lunch break. So I would run home. I would actually run home. It would take me 5 minutes to run home. I would quickly grab a banana. I would sit down at my desk, and I would start up the call. We would chat for half an hour, and then I would quickly finish the call, and then I would run back to the office, maybe with some biscuits in my pocket or something, so that I had something else to eat, because I didn't have time to eat a proper meal because I was running a conversation club, so you can't eat when you're talking, and then I was commuting between work. So the lunchtime one was always a bit hectic. So that became a 3-week cycle. We'd have one in the morning, the next week would be one at lunchtime, and then the next week would be one in the evening. Still, people were asking me, but hey, I can't, that's like every 3 weeks, and this particular week I couldn't go because of this, so I have to wait 6 weeks until the next one. So then I was like, okay, right, well, how can I help people to get this conversation opportunity when they're in different parts of the world? Right, I'm going to have to run 3 every week, so everybody gets a chance every week. So then I started running 3 of these conversation clubs every week. So I'd have one in the morning, I would have one at lunchtime, and then I would have one in the evening every single week whilst I was working full-time in my full-time job at the Japanese consulate. So that went on for about 3 months, I think. 3 months, I think I was doing that for. And then I was using the free Zoom, which was, you could speak for 40 minutes. So that didn't matter. I wasn't paying any money for that. But I was getting quite worn out because I had a lot of messages coming through Facebook all the time. I was needing to set up the events in Facebook as well. So I was spending a lot of time doing this. And someone said to me, okay, this actually was a business coach again, because I'd started to get into the online world, online business. They said, look, this is where you need to start a membership. So people, if they really want this, they can pay you for the time that you're spending to do it. And I could actually get the Zoom room paid for as well. So we could do more with Zoom. And I could record it, and there's more flexibility if you pay for a Zoom account anyway. So I set up my membership. So that's how the Nihongo Connection membership started in November of 2017. So yes, now we've passed a few years. So 2014 is when the Conversation Club started in Edinburgh. And then in the summer of 2017, I started to run the online version of it. So that is how everything started. Okay, we have one rule. It's Japanese only, and we are open to anyone that wants to attend. Now, once we've moved a few times, the place that we have held the group has changed quite a few times for various reasons, mainly because the cafes and restaurants that we used actually closed down, which was really, really sad. We had a really nice base, which was a Japanese arcade cafe, which we used up until January this year. And it was perfect. The whole place was decked out Japanese style. So we had posters on the wall. We had Japanese language posters, and they had the arcade games in there. It just felt really authentic. They sold Japanese sweets, things like Pocky and lamune, so they had the lemonade with the ball in it, and what was it? Melon soda in cans in the fridge. You know, the whole place was decked out like we were in Japan. So it really gave us the feeling that we were in Japan when we went there. And again, as soon as everyone walked through the door, konbanwa, it was brilliant. Unfortunately, it's really hard for businesses in Edinburgh because there are so many cafes, restaurants, and this place, perfect as it was tucked away off of the main thoroughfare. So I think it just didn't get as much attention as it really should have done, even though, you know, they were great. They were promoting all the time. They were promoting our group all the time, and we were promoting them all the time because our group was there. So we moved to a hotel, and the hotel is huge and was great until we were hit by COVID-19. So that is when the online group really came into its own. I always had the group on a Friday running from 6 till 8 p.m. But there were people in my membership by this point in Sweden, in America, in Israel, and also people in Edinburgh who couldn't come to the Friday club in the hotel because of work, because of location, because of circumstance. So I actually would have my iPad on the table with Zoom open for them to attend virtually whilst the actual event was happening. So there was always this Friday night virtual event that my members could attend. So as soon as we were put into lockdown and we could no longer hold the in-person event, then the online event became the main event. And it was at that point I thought, okay, well, let's open this up for people around the world, even if they're not members of the membership. Now, the membership members get officially five conversation clubs every week, plus the 6 till 8, which is the bonus club on a Friday. So I opened up 2 of their clubs, the Friday at 12 UK time and the Friday at 6 till 8 UK time. So those are now accessible for people around the world, wherever they are, because of lockdown. Now, once we go back into being able to hold our Edinburgh group again, that's probably going to be back to members only again. I haven't decided yet, because that is a perk of the membership. So anyway, it's been amazing being able to give everyone the opportunity to speak Japanese online in our amazing community. And I think it's really shown how amazing learners are at learning on their own, because there are so many people that have come to the group who have maybe never had an official Japanese lesson in their lives, who turn up to our conversation club, and at first, yes, they may have difficulties, but the more weeks they come, week 3, week 4, they start to have those conversations. So guys, those of you that are learning languages on your own without a teacher, you are amazing. Okay? You are going away, you're getting the textbooks, you are looking at resources online, and you're putting the pieces together so that when you then turn up at the conversation club, that's all you need is the practice. All you need are those opportunities to have the conversations. And then the conversations just help you slot that information into the correct order. Because I think that's the main thing. People usually tell me it's the grammar that they're struggling with, and conjugations, just getting the words in order for their sentences for when they're speaking Japanese. So that is where the group started. So where's the group headed? Well, this is our 6th year, as I've mentioned. So on the 6th of June, Saturday the 6th of June, from 11 a.m. till 6 p.m, we are having a party. We are having a Japanese language party. And I'm speaking to lots of different teachers, native speakers and experts in Japanese language and culture, to have them appear for 30 to 40 minute slots and teach us something about Japan, about Japanese language, about Japanese culture. So even if you don't know any Japanese, but you just love the culture, you're welcome to come along. There will be some slots that are meant to be Japanese only. So we're going to have a conversation, at least one conversation slot in there where you can all chat with us in Japanese. But the main reason is to bring back that connection. That the whole reason for me to start it was to have connections with other Japanese speakers, whether native speakers, whether learners, just to connect with each other and have Japanese as the central subject, the central passion for everyone that's turning up. And that's what the event is for me, just to have an event where people gather together who want to talk about Japan. Because I don't know about you, but my family don't get it. They don't understand my love for Japan. They never came to Japan. I was in Japan for 5 years and they never came to visit me in Japan. They did try, but SARS put paid to the flight that they did have organised to come out. But there was no understanding of what I experienced when I lived in Japan, and to be honest, no interest for them in Japanese language and culture. Despite my trying over years, there hasn't been this interest for them. So I have to find other people to talk about Japan with, and that's why I thought, you know what, I'm going to make my own community where I can go on about Japan as much as I want. I can talk to the people in Japanese, and we will have this family, Japanese language family. So that is the whole reason behind Nihongo Connection. I want this to be a Japanese language family that reaches around the world, that gives people the opportunities to connect using the Japanese language, and to just, for you guys to find yourself a home like I have. So that is what Nihongo Connection is all about. That is what I hope you have got from Nihongo Connection. And I hope that you continue to be motivated to study, even though I don't like the word study, to kind of grab onto the Japanese language that you are passionate about and just think of it as a mode of communication. Don't think of it as a subject. It's a way to be. It's a way to live your life. A Japanese speaker. You are a Japanese speaker. That's what you tell yourself. I'm a Japanese speaker. It doesn't matter how little Japanese you speak. You tell yourself that, and you go out into the world and you use that skill. You use that identification of yourself to just go out there and do it. I'm a Japanese speaker. I'm going to go speak to people in Japanese. And that's why I have my badges made. You've probably seen the badge that's, well, maybe you haven't. I had a badge that says Nihongo de hanashimashou, let's speak Japanese. And I encourage all my members, community members, to wear their badge, because you never know when there's a Japanese speaking opportunity. I wear my badge here in Edinburgh. I've got several of them and they're on all my jackets. When I go outside, I always have a let's speak Japanese badge on. And then if there's somebody in the street who looks at me, looks at my jacket, happens to see the badge, it's a conversation starter. I don't have to start that conversation in Japanese. The person will look at the badge, and if they do understand Japanese, they'll say, Nihongo wakarimasu ka? Nihongo dekimasu ka? So sometimes that's a native Japanese speaker, and sometimes it's somebody else who's just learning the language, who recognizes that it says Japanese and can speak Japanese, or even recognizes it and they've only just started, but they can say, you speak Japanese, and then there's a connection. There's that connection straight away. Do you know what's amazing about the badge as well, though? It's a conversation starter, even in English, because I'll go into a shop or somewhere. I'll be waiting in line to pay for something, and someone will see the badge and they'll say, what's your badge say? And I say, oh, it says, let's speak Japanese. And then their next question is always, hey, do you speak Japanese? Like, well, yes, I do. And then they'll tell me a story. They'll say, oh, I have a friend who learned Japanese at university. How'd you get the badge? And I say, oh, I sell it on Etsy, by the way. But it's also a group. My group is Nihongo Connection. And then I usually give them a business card for Nihongo Connection and say, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Pinterest, we're everywhere. Come and join our community, or tell your cousin, friend, brother, whoever it is that is learning Japanese to come and join our community, because we're here to help, we're here to support you. So I'm just always looking for a way to connect with people who speak Japanese, who understand Japanese, who want to understand Japanese. And I'm here for you, and the community's here for you too. So if you would like to come to our 6th birthday party, we would love to have you. It is a charity fundraiser. 50% of the money for tickets is going to Mind, which is a mental health charity. Why have I chosen that charity? Well, I think they're going to be inundated because of all this lockdown business. And I just really think it's important to make sure that everybody is okay. I've had some struggles during this lockdown. I've had some struggles before this lockdown. And I think it's really important for us to speak to people about any problems that we're having. So 50% of the money from the tickets for the event is going to Mind, M-I-N-D, if you want to Google that charity, so that they can carry on to do their very valuable work that they're doing. The other money for the event is going to organising it, paying for teachers to attend, and if people sign up for the event, they can also get some money back if they get somebody else to sign up. So it's like a referral scheme. So if you want to go to the event, you pay to join the event. If you then, once you've paid, you will then get an email from me saying, hey, if you let somebody else know about this event and they mention you when they sign up, you get some money from your ticket back again, okay? So I want this event to raise money for charity, and I want this event to help and encourage as many people as possible to speak Japanese, because it's a wonderful language and it's a wonderful way to connect with people and communicate with people from all over the world. Do you know, I find it still kind of surprises me how many people in my conversation club have, that their native language is not actually English. So our shared language is actually Japanese. English is not the mother tongue of most people in my membership. That blows my mind. I just think that, so our common language is Japanese, and that's just brilliant. I just think that's brilliant. Okay, so I think I've waffled on for long enough. So if you have any questions that I've not covered about the origin of Nihongo Connection, or what the group, the event is all about, just let me know. I'll drop a link for the event details down below. So if you'd like to sign up to come to our Japanese language and culture party, please do. It's on Saturday, the 6th of June from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. Yes, I know it's our 6th birthday on the 6th of the 6th month, but it's nothing to do with the devil. But if that helps you remember it, brilliant. I'll see you there. So our next conversation club is on Monday for my members. And for people who are not in the membership yet, it is 12 o'clock noon on Friday, and then another one, the long version, from 6 till 8 on Friday next week, UK time. All right, I look forward to seeing you then. All right, mata ne.